Here we are.
Once
The
again.
the last chapter from the Laws of Human Nature, chapter 18. And it comes to an end, our series on the laws of human nature, sadly. But it's a new chapter. But it just so happens to be that this chapter is all about death. And chapter 18 is meditate on our common mortality, the law of death denial.
Right.
Meditate on our common mortality, the law of death denial. So this series dies, but a new one will begin.
Right. But even though it's talking about death, um, I look at it as a message of hope because what Robert Greene is trying to do is have everybody that reads this book in this particular chapter look at it in a different light, in a different way, you know? Um, and it really hits home. It really hits home because when you're young, like you are, and when you're in your 20s, 30s, and 40s, you're not thinking particularly about this sort of things.
Mm-mm.
But when
Unless you're
you
faced with something. Unless you're faced with something,
correct,
you're not. I mean, I'm 34 and I think I still have a long life ahead, right?
we hope you're healthy,
I would hope.
right? So you're healthy. It's like that phrase that says, the man that is not healthy only has one thought in mind, and that is, how can I get better?
Yeah.
How can I improve my health?
Now, and you also, but I specifically was in an industry of which I sold life insurance.
Right.
So I dealt with death, and it was a constant conversation. So I was exposed to it. So I do think I have a little bit of a different perspective on it, but it was more of, make sure that these people and their family are okay if something happens and they pass away. It wasn't thinking about, well, what if I passed away? So that was interesting because I somehow separated that.
Oh,
I will share real quick because
interesting. I like that.
I where I think death for the first time, obviously when your parents, my mom's parents passed away, grandparents, right?
Uh-huh.
They were older. But for me, later on in life, maybe I was 20, let's say 25, no, maybe like 20, 24, 23. I sold a life insurance. I went to go review a life insurance policy for a lady, very nice lady, and her son was bedridden, and he had something called Huntington's disease,
Okay.
and he was almost my same age. And I would meet with her because her husband had passed from the same illness, and now her son had it. He developed it later on in life. I think he was 18 or so when he developed this severe symptoms, and he was bedridden. And I would visit her, and one time she told me, my son would be just like you if he didn't have this illness. He
Wow.
would be somebody who was working and trying to do a good living. And so I thought, whoa. And then one day he passes away. And that was very, very sad. And I went to the services, and it was very sad.
Sure.
And I always, when she threw that at me, ever since then, I always thought that could have been me. It could be me. That it just so happened that he was born with this illness
Yes.
and it came later in life. But, we don't, you don't know when something's going to hit you. And so it hit me a little bit. And I felt ever since then, I had a little bit of a different view on things because being in the life insurance industry, you deal a lot with people passing away,
Right.
death. But again, I separated it from my actual mortality. I was able to somehow say, I didn't really think about my own. This chapter makes you think about your own
Right.
more than I ever have. So I'm interested in yours because you bring it up a lot. I wanted to ask you, how do you deal with your mortality?
Okay. Well, let me share something. You know, your story almost matches the story of the book that Robert Greene portrays. The illness was different. It was called lupus erythematosus disseminated, and it was genetic, and it's illness that the body builds antibodies against your own cells, right? Anyway, that's the one that he cited in the book.
Yeah, it was Flannery O'Connor
Correct.
that ended up with lupus also, and her father had died from it.
Correct.
So she ended up eventually dying from it.
Yeah. So you experienced something similar, except that the illness that the young man had was what again?
It was called Huntington's disease.
Huntington's
Yeah.
disease. And he was about your age, maybe a little younger.
Yeah, I mean, he was early 20s, unfortunately, when he passed.
Early 20s when he passed.
Yeah.
Well, that definitely will change your perspective on life. No doubt about it.
Yeah, because it's not just
No,
sales, you form a bond with the family, with the customer. They become friends, they become
family.
family. And so, yeah, no, it was very sad, very, very sad. Because when she told me that, she said, my son would have been like you.
Uh-huh.
It was, you know, she was faced with she took care of him. She was faced with this
Reality.
reality, you know, but previous to that, he was okay, before he fell under the illness.
Uh-huh.
And so he was a normal boy, is the way that I understood it, a normal teenager to a certain extent. And then all of a sudden, the disease took its effect on him. It came later on. And so she thought, he was going to be normal, I think. So it was interesting. And
Well,
for
it
me,
definitely affected your life. And
oh,
she saw you
oh,
as a reflection of what her son could have been.
yeah, he would have been a working,
Young man
yeah,
trying to make his way in life.
sure, trying to do an honest living. And so it wasn't like a regret that she was
No,
sharing,
I
but
think it might have been a sort of comforting that she could see in you what her son could potentially have been. But
yeah,
because of the illness, look, you need to rationalize things out,
yeah,
especially difficult things like this that hit you in life. Okay?
yeah,
Um, yeah.
yeah.
I was in, just real quick, I never forget um, my first life insurance death check,
Mm-hmm.
where the person I sold a bunch of life insurance, and when the first person that I had insured years before passed,
Mm-hmm.
and I delivered that check to the family, it is extremely emotional,
Oh yeah,
and you can't help but build a bond. Um, and it's not like you find out all of a sudden, because there may be certain withdrawals that can be made on the life policy with whatever product you sell, whatever. And so you are involved in the illness somewhere along the line.
if it's an illness, some people pass away in an accident,
Right, right.
or
That's true.
something spontaneous.
Yes.
But
So,
yeah, no, that's one thing that Green talks about in this chapter, is that when a crisis like that happens, people come together.
yes.
I mean, I was in the parking lot the other day, and I saw there was a kid on a shopping cart,
Mm-hmm.
and somehow the shopping cart got away from the mom while
Ooh,
she was loading up things, and a car was zooming by in the parking lot and almost hit the kid.
wow.
And she went and got her kid, and then I saw her. She brought him back to the trunk, and she was with, I think, her mom, and she was like holding her heart, kind of thing, like, like she was gonna have like something. And I'm there, in the car, seeing it after the fact develop. And then another lady came, and they kind of like united, and are you okay? And oh my God, I can't believe he drove by like that. And in a split second, something can happen.
You're right.
And that's what's so interesting about this, is that Green is bringing up, is that, like, for me, I think I'm young, healthy, I have a whole life ahead.
Right.
It's not. You can't live life like that. You should live life thinking tomorrow, today could be, this could be our last podcast. So it has to be the best podcast that it can be. And he said when he's writing his books, now it just so happens somewhere around the time that Robert Greene finished The Laws of Human Nature, he has a massive stroke, goes into a coma, and almost dies. It just so happens. Now, he just wrote a chapter about death, chapter 18,
Yeah,
and then he has a coma. And I remember he was doing the publicity and interviews, different podcasts promoting The Laws of Human Nature, and he had a cane, and he looked fragile at that time.
he did.
And he's done a recovery, but he would say that he can't physically do the things that he did. He used to, I think,
Yeah,
swim,
he was a swimmer.
and all of that was gone. And he says forever, he'll never be able to do some of the things that he did because of this stroke.
Right. Now he's a fighter, just like we all should be in the face of something drastic like what he went through.
Yeah.
So what he's talking about, I think, to an extent, is that he's not going to be able to swim the way he used to and have the resilience and resistance, right? Because you build tolerance, right? But in the process of trying to get to a place near to where he was before, he continues to improve his body because bottom line is you need to exercise and watch what you eat and so forth so that your quality of life continues. That's one thing that, so my perspective that you've asked for.
Yeah. How do you deal with your mortality? How do you
So
handle that?
um what I do is I am extremely aware that, because of my age, I'm 65 years old. I'm going to be 66
Soon.
in 30 days or next month in January, okay? So if you play the odds is that I'm not going to be around for too much longer. What is too much longer to some people? Another 10 years? Another 20? 30? Maybe? Not really, because that'll throw me into 85, 86, right? So maybe. So what do you do? So one of the things there's two things I do. One that impacts me, and the second one impacts the way
No,
I look
30
at the
years
world.
would put you into the 90s. 30 years
Oh
you'd
yeah,
be
it
in the
put me to the
90s.
90s. That reminds me. There's an older gentleman on Instagram, and the mom is talking to him, and I mean the daughter, and she says, "How old are you, Dad?" And he says, "I think I'm about 60." And she goes, "60?" And she goes, "No, go up." And it ends up that he's 95,
Wow.
and he can't believe it, but he's 60. Excuse me, he thinks he's 60, but he's truly 95.
Wow.
But he can't believe it. So you're talking about denial because you're feeling good, and maybe there's a little bit as we get into our late years, not completely all there, maybe,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
Anyway, you
How do you
saw.
handle it though? How
So
do
how
you
do I
handle it?
handle it? So
You're thinking there's
there's two
less.
ways I do it.
Okay.
One, for myself, I take care of myself very much, I think. You know, I watch what I eat like a hawk. Okay, I don't mess around with stuff that I think it's unhealthy to me. And I think that doing that and having that discipline will increase my quality of life. And it's an unselfish disposition because I'm thinking I don't want you guys to be wiping my butt, to be giving me a shower, I want to be as independent as I possibly can well into my later years if that's what the good Lord has in store for me. I want to be independent. I don't want to depend on other people. So that's the first thing that I do. And the second thing that I do and that I've been doing for many, many years is I try to live the present at its fullest. Okay? And I try to be in some form of creative mood. And it doesn't matter whether I'm playing the piano and learning it, which I tried that, whether I'm learning this metal fabrication class, which I'm in, whether I'm learning something, I'm trying to learn something new, okay, all the time to stay, uh, you know, in shape mentally, okay? And I deal with my mortality because it's the final equalizer. It equalizes everything for all of us because we're all gonna go. Whether you are a prince or a king or a pauper, we're all gonna go one day. It's the final equalizer. And one of the things that I'm also asking myself for many years now, maybe 20 years back or something like that, how will people think of me when I'm gone? What will be their thought of me when I'm gone? And I want them to think good things. And the only way they're going to think good things is by me improving the moment with that person, bringing something of value with that person. Love. If you bring love, that's very valuable. Caring for the person, you know? So I'm always thinking, when I leave, I always want to leave with a word of encouragement. I always want to leave in a positive way, tremendous positive attitude. This is what I try, okay? Because I'm thinking the day I'm gone, I want to, I want people to think of me, in a good way. And before you know it, it's all gone because who's going to think of you? You're not going to make unless you are a Robert Greene that's exposed to so many millions of people, you can make a huge impact. But you want to make a huge impact in the people that surround you, no matter how many they are. Two, three, five, 10, 1,000, 10,000, whatever surrounds you. And you want to use your pulpit as a way of releasing positive news, spin things around in a positive attitude. Um, and that's how I deal with it, you know. I'm trying every day to improve and learn something. And whoever I come with, leave in a positive, leave him in a better position than I found them, him or
Have
her.
Okay, so you try to positively affect the people around you, your family. You want to be remembered as somebody in a positive light,
I do.
and that's so your actions are leading to that.
Yeah.
That's your goal.
And those thoughts get in my mind. I don't get to think too much. Fortunately, I'm not sick, that I'm bedridden, you know. I see other people, not necessarily around me, you know, but yeah, around us, that are dealing with physical situations and they're younger than me, you know?
Hmm.
So I give thanks every day, 1,000 times a day, for being able to spring out of my bed.
Yeah,
We've talked about that gentleman that's a friend of mine that had a stroke, and for about 6 months, he couldn't get out of bed on his own. And now he's made a full recovery. And when I speak to him, he tells me, I don't get out of bed. I spring out of bed for the
yeah,
lack of being able to do it for 6 months on his own.
yeah. I have seen firsthand how you try to take care of yourself, and I've also seen how you try to a positive influence around people, the people around you. And I've also seen that you say it often. I need to get things done today. I don't know. I'm not going to be around that long. You say that
I do.
because I say, oh, yeah, we'll get that done at a future date, something. You're like, no, we need to get it done
Now.
now. I don't know that I have tomorrow, kind of thing.
Right.
And I know that maybe you're just saying that, but also maybe also I don't know if, do you really believe that?
Well, there's some truth to it.
Yeah.
Because remember the saying, tomorrow is not promised to anyone.
Yeah.
You know, you could pass away in your sleep and not wake up the following morning. We're talking like this because this is a chapter that talks about the law of death denial,
Yeah, you
right?
have to face your mentality.
Yeah, which is it's the ultimate equalizer. They found, Pompeii, Mount
Hmm.
Vesuvius erupted, and Pompeii was covered with volcanic magma, and they didn't have a chance to get out. Okay, uh, And there's some tombs that have been discovered. And there's this one particular one, and I hope I'm not misquoting, but there were like 52 people or 40 people in it. And there was a distinction. On one side, there were the people, and there was jewelry and gold and this and that. And on the other side, there were other people, and they were apparently poor because there was no gold, no jewelry, no nothing. But they all died together. One on one side, the others on the other. So even in the when you face death, right? There's even then some distinction among the classes, and it doesn't really truly matter because they all died.
Yeah.
The rich with all their gold and the jewelry never died just as much as the poor died with their clothes. And so
But what is that like how should we process that? How do you think we should process it? The fact that we're all on a level playing field at the moment of death? What is that what does that mean in life?
I think that the message that Robert Greene is sending out is that by becoming aware of our mortality, we become aware of what's really truly valuable in life. It is not jewelry. It's not the houses. It's not the expensive cars. It's not that. It's the relationships that we have with each other. You know, your father, your son, your mother, your sisters, your daughters, your aunts. Improve your relationships and stop fighting over petty things, things that are not really worth it because your stay here is short lived.
Yeah.
Okay, now we don't know where we go after the inevitable happens. But I believe that there's something else because we are a form of energy. And energy neither gets created or destroyed, remember? So it transforms. So we go somewhere. And with that belief, okay, you believe that you go on, right? And if
Hmm.
you believe in the good Lord, then you believe that you end up in heaven, right? And so in many religions, I
Yeah.
don't care where they're coming from, they believe that this is not the end, right? So I think that the message is, look, guys, you can have, I'm not against having the houses, the expensive, I'm not against that. If you have succeeded economically in life and you're able to have that, good for you. But just be aware that that's not the only success that you should strive for. You should strive for having a great relationship with your son or your sons. You should strive to have a great relationship with your daughter or your daughters and your father and your mother. And that is the legacy that gets left behind.
Not the material things.
No,
Now, do you think you can have them both? Do you think you can have the material things and good relationships?
of course I do.
Okay.
But it takes working at it, it takes energy. Of course you can. Yes.
Because some maybe people may believe, well, if I'm going to spend all my time working and building these material things, I'm not going to have much of a relationship with my family.
Well, that's where you need a little bit of balance.
Or if I want to spend my time coaching and spending all my time with my kids, I'm not going to have the material things
Correct.
financially.
Correct.
So, do you think you can have both?
I think you can have both. Because look, it doesn't take a lot of money to live a good life. Okay? Even here in the United States of America. Now, this is my personal opinion, folks. And this is why and I know that in the past we've been hit with, I'm not going to say attacked, but the different points of view, which we welcome them, by the way, tremendously. Okay? But my opinion is that you don't need a lot of money to live a good life. I have friends being Hispanic that live up and down Latin America all over the place. And they tell me constantly, you know what? With the $5,000 here that I make in the United States, I live like a king over here in Costa Rica or in
Yeah.
Mexico, in Guadalajara,
Somebody just told us the other day, Portugal.
Portugal. There you go. Somebody wants to go to Portugal. That's right.
Yeah.
Correct.
Yeah.
So, and I'm not here to criticize anybody. More value for you. And that's a goal to attain. That's beautiful. And it may be driving you. And
Yeah.
it drives you. That's your internal force. More power to you. I, however, think a little bit differently. Maybe because I don't think I'm able to go back to Cuba, my country of birth, and leave everything, all my family and everybody that's here. So my life is here unless I'm able to go back and completely alter my little ecosystem over there. It's going to be a totally different culture at this point. It's my culture, but they're different. We're different now.
Oh
I
yeah,
grew up in the United States of America.
yeah.
And I remember one time when we were sending packages to Cuba, and by the way, it was extremely expensive to send things there because everybody had a hand in the, you had to pay off all kinds of people in order for whatever was in the package to get to your family members. And I remember one family member asking for money, and we just didn't have it at that time. And a letter came back to my father, and it hit my mom and dad really hard. And what was in there said, "Yeah, I know you don't want to help us out. You've been living in the United States for 20 years. You've been eating ham and cheese for 20 years. You never had any problem. So now you forgot about us." And we had just finished sending them a package that cost quite a bit to get out. So even then, you have to deal with those kind of thoughts. So money, it's a tool. If they would have had more money, they would have sent 10 packages instead of two. You follow? And so you use money as a tool to improve the lives of people around you.
Wow.
And I think
But
that's
that was a family member that sent that?
that was a family member
Wow.
that sent that because we couldn't send more or money. He wanted money because with money you were able to buy things on in the black market, right? Which there were quite a bit of quality stuff in the black market.
The black market, for those that don't know, in Cuba, basically,
It's an underground.
yeah, but I mean, if you go to the store and you don't have, you only have ketchup and there's no other items, then you have to find a way to get those other items, and
Right.
that's that black market. People have those items. So,
And see, I don't know that I've ever shared that story.
yeah, I don't think yeah,
Yeah.
I don't think I'd heard that.
So, the podcast and spending time with your family, you listen to your mom and dad, every now and then something of value comes out like this.
Yeah.
Every now and then something of value gets thrown out, you know?
So, so one of the things that Greene is saying in this chapter is that when we face when somebody close to us passes away, it puts like in perspective the reality of death. And so we in those moments, I guess we appreciate things a lot more. Everything reminds us of that person. It's for that time period, it makes us realize the small things are important, right? The trees, the sky, the small things are important, and they remind us of the person that passed away. And then I guess over time maybe that fades away, that feeling,
Mm-hmm.
and then we kind of forget again. Because like in society, that's one thing, like Hollywood and a lot, nobody, people don't want to deal with death because they want to look young forever, and they start
Yes.
to disfigure their
Oh,
face and
well,
surgeries and you know
we have a couple of people we know that have done stuff to themselves and they look worse than they did before. Okay, so you have to be careful what you do when you're trying to alter,
beauty is in the eye of the beholder.
you right, the path of nature.
Well, yeah, I mean, so there are things that you can do, like you said, take care of
Yeah,
yourself. What fuel are you putting in your engine, right?
supplements. I'm taking supplements
So
to
all
help.
of that's super
Yeah,
important, but it's easy to forget.
it
Now,
is.
as you get, let's say, closer,
Right.
you
For
might,
you, it's easy to forget.
yeah, it's easy for me to,
Yeah,
because I think it's far away. I think that, I want to have my family, let's say, taken care of if something were to happen to me. And so I wanted to do, I've done some planning in that side of things, but I don't think of it as like it's a possibility tomorrow, today.
right.
It's hard to really
Right.
think of.
Well, he says people have a reality deficit.
Yeah.
And I ended up underlining that because he says, you know, you have a reality deficit. You're not really in tune with the, you know, the things that potentially, because really, you know, tomorrow is promised to no one. Whether you're 5 years old, 60, 30, you just never know. And so I think living the present and doing the best you can at the moment.
Yeah.
It's now one thing that I want to tell you know, I also follow Dan Pena, and he's brutal. He is an extremely aggressive individual that has been extremely successful. I've got nothing um,
Financially, he's
right financially. Um, and so, you know, he calls everybody a bunch of wusses and so forth. You know, we're all
snowflakes.
snowflakes. Okay. But he says something that's very true. Now, I don't want to judge him. I don't want to necessarily adopt his vision completely because I think I may become, I'm not saying that he is, but I could become a little cynical, right? But one thing that he says is, you want to change the world? And listen to this. Do you want to change the world? And if you want to change your world, according to him, you need to go out and make your money first. Because there's no poor person that's going to change the world, according to him. Now,
Yeah.
I don't agree totally, okay? Because you have the you have the Gandhis of the world, the Mother Teresa's, right? They
Yeah.
didn't have a fortune to their name and they changed the world. But what he's talking about is if you want to build a food bank in Indonesia, okay, if you've got millions and millions, you can go ahead and build a food bank.
But you can already change your world, the people around you, without necessarily money. You could be good to the people around you.
That's what I'm
You
talking
could be
about.
present to the people around you. See, because um
Well, like this guy, Mr. Beast or whatever,
yeah.
he just built, I
Yeah,
don't
but he's
know.
got a lot of money now. What I'm saying is that
Yeah,
you
but he
don't
came
have
from
to get
nothing.
right, but you don't have to get to that point
Right.
necessarily to already make positive change in people and be a
Totally agree.
because what happens is we know a lot of people. I mean, especially being that, in the insurance world, you had a lot of customers, thousands of customers. And we would hear people, working till 65, retiring, and then passing away, dying, never enjoying those golden years. They worked their butts off, worked their butts off, worked their butts off,
Yeah,
two
yeah.
jobs, and retire and then pass away, or right before retirement, a stress, they were so stressed out because of work or other things that they would die and never enjoy everything that they worked for. So who's going to enjoy all that money? Their spouse, kids, and it's gone.
Yeah. And I'm not being disrespectful because when you said they retired at age 65, the golden years, and I laughed, right? You reminded me of a client that would come into the office to make his payments all the time. And he alluded to the golden years not being golden. So every time I saw him, okay, I would say, Mr. So and so, good morning. How are the golden years working out for you? And he would say, they're not golden, kid. They're not golden. That's a mirage. It's not true. I've got, you know, arthritis, my bones ache. You know, it takes me 30 minutes to get out. So that would get him going. And he
Yeah,
would,
it's a
so
cu- it's
that's
a
why I laughed. I didn't laugh because of disrespect or anything, because, you know, those people that work that much and they hit 65 and then they want to enjoy life and then something happens
yeah.
where they get sick or something. Yeah, you know, I've heard that many times. So what would be the moral of the story there?
Enjoy life
Now,
now in the journey, which is hard. It's hard because you're trying to make money and be there for your family and learn and get ahead in life. And so you can get wound up in this, especially we're in LA, right? This culture and society is about work, 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 work. I mean, we just ran into a gentleman last week. He's self employed, business owner, very financially successful. He was explaining he would work 100 hours a week as he was building his business.
Oh yeah, that's right.
And so,
Can you imagine?
how are you there for your family? How are you enjoying the process if you're working 100 hours a
I've
week?
asked him that question. Here's the reply. Ready? He realizes he's not there for his family. So his goal is to be able to put every single one of his kids through college. And he relies on his wife to be there for the family issues. And when somebody steers out of whatever they consider to be the correct path, he steps in. But he says, my wife takes care of the kids. I have this agreement. I'm going to work my tail off so that I can have enough money to put them through school so they can have an education and a degree. That's his goal.
Hmm.
So he's made a business plan with his wife. You take care of the kids. I'm gonna go work, and I'm gonna make sure that nothing. You guys have everything you need. And that's how he. Because I've asked him. Because I know who you're talking about. Actually, he works 112 hours or 105 hours a week. That's you know. Yeah. Now he's very successful. How many hours? I mean, he
Well,
sleeps
yeah, I'm
four
trying to do
hours.
the math. Let's
Yeah,
say that you work
100 hours a week. That's two times 40. That's 80. So you're
I mean, he's working time seven. There's only 7 days a week, so if you're working 15 hours a day times seven, that's 105 hours a
Yeah,
week.
there you go. He works 15-hour days, 16-hour days.
So,
Now, there was a time when I worked that much, but I wasn't married yet. I was
yeah.
in the process of building. And I remember talking to a doctor friend, because at that time I was in the health field.
Hmm.
And I remember talking to a friend of mine that was a doctor. Um, he was a nephrologist, a kidney specialist. And I told him, I can't continue this. I, I, you know, I can do this now. I was in my late 20s, 28, and I was working like 100 or yeah, a ton of hours a week.
80 hours a
Yeah,
week.
80 hours a week. And I remember telling him I won't be able to continue this too much longer. And in my mind, I thought maybe another 3 years of this, but I'm done. I needed to look for a way out, and I found a way out. So if you look, he who searches finds. So don't despair if you're in a situation where you see everything caving in, you know. In the middle of that darkness, try to see if there's a little bit of light coming in. And I know that, it's what is it? Comparison, but
Analogy.
it's an analogy, but if you look, you will find.
So, another here's a quote from this chapter I thought was pretty cool. By connecting to the reality of death, we connect more profoundly to the reality and fullness of life. So, awareness and reality of death makes us live life, right? More profoundly.
Yeah.
If you're putting off this reality of death, then you're doing the opposite. You're not really fully living. I thought that was a pretty cool way to put it because and he talked about a love of fate, the fate that we all will
Amor
go.
fati, Friedrich Nietzsche. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, that was a pretty it's a cool concept. And but how do we keep it present? How do we keep it present? I know you're saying it's more present for you because it's the reality that you're 65. I'm
Right.
34. I wanted to bring up Meet Joe Black, that scene in Meet Joe Black, which you love. You even did a short on it, on YouTube. But it's where he's giving his final speech, Anthony Hopkins, and he's somebody who was very financially successful, but wasn't really there for his family, right? He wasn't really present. That's the way I remember.
Hmm.
And then now he's faced with death, and he has a few final words that he can say. And one of the things that he says in it is, doesn't it go by
It
fast. Something
doesn't it go by in a blink of an eye?
doesn't it go by in a blink? He was talking about life. Doesn't it go by in a blink?
Yeah, and he was 65
And he was 65,
in the
which
movie. It's a great movie, folks, if you want to see it. Meet Joe Black.
so
Anthony
he
Hopkins and who's the young kid?
Brad Pitt.
Brad Pitt.
He's faced with death. It's around the corner, and
And he's given a few days.
given a few more days. But what does he do in those few days? He's trying to be present for his family again, right?
Yes,
And they're weirded out by it
right,
because he was never around.
right.
So when you're faced with death, you just want to be build stronger relationships, be there for those that love you and
The
that you
people
love.
that the people that love you,
Yeah,
that surround you, your family, your friends, relationships you've built over time. Um, it's that eternal phrase where people say, "Hey, I've never heard anybody say, close to their deathbed or near their deathbed, oh, I wish I would have worked more hours." The thought is always, I wish I would have spent more time with my family.
yeah.
I wish I would have gone here, there, everywhere. And it's not necessarily traveling to Europe or far away places or whatever, it's being there. You can go around the corner and have an In-N-Out burger and have the time of your life, with your kids. And you don't have to hop on a plane and go to exotic places. Sure, that does have its allure and that has its place. And for those of you that are doing that, God bless you for it. But you don't have to get on a plane and go through it to an exotic place to enjoy the heck out of your family. A simple trip to In-N-Out, you know, can
Simple things.
can do it. You know, the a little hike to the mountain that's around the corner, can do it. All right.
Yeah, just spending
I
time
was
with the
thinking
family.
of going to Mount Shasta because it's one of these big, huge mysteries, and it's in Northern California. Huge mystery thing, and it's near us, right? Not
Yeah.
that far. And so, but yeah, I mean, I think it's Mount Shasta. Yeah. Anyway, and so being, you're right. You hit the nail on the head. He's trying to be with the family
Right before he goes.
right before he goes, and they're kind of like, in, what's going on with you?
Yeah.
What's gotten into you?
He's sentimental. He's trying to bond with him. Another analogy I thought was cool that Robert Greene gave was when you travel to a place that you don't know, you're kind of on high alert because you
Yeah,
don't know the area and you want to make sure you protect yourself and the people around you. And so you're extra basically aware. You're seeing everything, you're noticing everything, all the people, all the
yes.
sceneries, etc. And he was comparing that to awareness of death, that we should be living like that constantly, like fully absorbing everything. In that state, you're doing it because it's a way of protecting yourself.
If you're in a foreign land, things are different. You have to be careful because you're there to have fun. It's vacation, possibly, but you just it's not vacation to the people of that land.
Right.
And there may be people there that are not as nice, looking for an opportunity to rob or hurt or whatever. So you have to be on high alert.
So you're on high alert. Everything is new. If you're going to get on a train, where's it going? How does this train work? Everything. And so that we should live like that, like in I guess, awareness of all of the things that are occurring.
I remember when we went to Australia, you guys were young and taking the train. It was a big ordeal. I was trying to figure out, am I going the right way? We want to reach here. Is this train going that way? And then you see all the path of the trains on the schematic, and you're going, I hope I picked the right one, Uncle John was with us. It was a good trip.
Yeah.
But yeah, you're right. You have to be on high alert.
Yeah.
Bottom line is try to envelop the moment and live it to the best that you can. And that's what I've been doing for many years now. And it wasn't like that all the time. Okay? I was very much involved in business and trying to make money. I'm just one of the run. I'm no different than anybody else. I was trying to make money, and anytime you're trying to do things of being economically successful, because we've established that there are many types of success in life. Economically is just another one of them.
Hmm.
It's extremely important. I don't want to undermine it because you can do a lot of good with the money you make. But it wasn't always like that, you know, and it took time away from home because I would make presentations. I had to practice them. It took time to do that, less time with the kids. So, you know, it takes a
There's a give.
village.
There's a give and take.
There sure
There's a
is.
sacrifice.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, another thing that I thought was cool, and I really agree with this, was embracing. What was the word that he used then? Embracing, um, not failure, but struggle
Oh, okay.
and suffering. That was another concept in this book. It was to embrace the struggle and suffering because it's part of your fate and you have to go through it and face it. You need to face it. I thought that was very interesting because one thing we've talked a lot about is parents trying to take away the struggle from their kids, so much so that it negatively affects the children.
Right. Well, you say it all the time, Mike. To credit to you, you say it all the time. The struggles make the man or the woman, and
It's what builds character. It's
it's
what
what builds
tests your
character.
character. Yeah.
There's a short video where, and it's two little Asian kids, and I think the father on purposes puts like a barrier on the door, and they're twins, and one of them comes up to that barrier and cries, 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 but doesn't do anything to get through. But the second one, and they're twins, comes up and immediately he tries to figure out how to get around it, gotta get through it, and he does. He changes a few things and comes through it, and the other one stops crying and starts scratching his head like, hmm. But to the parents' credit, it was a test, right? So they didn't come to help him. So one was able to get through that struggle, and the other one, that struggle stumped him.
Right.
But the goal is hopefully he learned something and he will be able to face something in the future and try to figure out, you know,
Yeah.
how to get around it, through it, or over it, whatever the case. It's very, yeah,
Yeah. Fear is a big thing that stops us from doing, from trying. Fear of failure, fear of embarrassment,
yes,
fear of death. All of these fears, we don't. Greene is arguing we don't fully live life with all these fears. I mean, at the ending of the chapter, he's getting into true freedom is dropping all those fears, being able to actually um, break away. He says, we humans have become the slaves to our fears and our evasions. When we turn this around, becoming more aware of our mortality, we experience a taste of true freedom. We no longer feel the need to restrict what we think and do in order to make life predictable. We can be more daring without feeling afraid of the consequences. We can cut loose from all the illusions and addictions that we employ to numb our anxiety. We can commit fully to our work, to our relationships, to all our actions. And once we experience some of this freedom, we will want to explore further and expand our possibilities as far as time will allow us.
I mean, easier said than done. He's a man with a lot of introspect, and
Yeah.
now he, in his later years, he was faced with being in a coma and a stroke, and that
Near death experience.
gives you a different take on things, I'm sure. Um,
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
it's not easy,
But
you
he
know.
wrote this, I believe,
Yeah.
before the near death
Oh, okay.
experience. It
Yeah.
was like right after.
Right.
It was
To
around
his,
that time.
it's very interesting because I saw an interview afterwards,
Hmm.
and they said because every book he writes takes a tremendous amount of energy, and he would say even health from him,
Yeah, he says it.
because of the way that he does his research and how he devotes his life to the book while he's writing it.
Yep.
And he says, gosh darn it, here I do it again. But he was asked, now that you know that this was a result potentially of this book, it weakened you to such a point, it took so much out of you that you had a stroke. Can we assume that potentially yes? He was asked, would you do it again? And his resounding reply was, yes, I would do it again. Because I feel that this should get out so that the world can see this and read about it, because I think I'm making a difference in hundreds of people's lives, thousands, right? Because he's a number one writer. So his books get all over, and the insight and research. So he said, I would do it again, even knowingly that his health would be effective.
Wow.
So, that's his ikigai. That's his purpose in life,
Yeah.
And now he's got to deal with it and improve his health by swimming the best he can, walking whatever he can, whatever, etc. Very interesting.
And, writing a new book, he's writing a new one called The Sublime. So that'll be interesting when it comes out.
Well, for sure. I can't wait. And, it's a man genuinely committed to his trade.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, it's been a fun series on the laws of human nature.
It sure has.
And for all those that commented and joined us on this series, thank you.
Thank you very much.
On to the next.